Yeah, I want this. Yeah. Looks really good. Let's keep going.
We believe we'll have 3 or 4 laps after the safety car, racing laps.
Hello and welcome to Workday Strategy Session. I'm joined by Collins and Jolyon Palmer to take a closer look at Ferrari's strategy on home soil in Monza. Charles Leclerc managed a podium, Carlos Sainz had to charge his way through the field, and the Ferrari pit wall had to quickly adapt to a late safety car. So Jolyon, what did you make of the race? It was a tough one for Ferrari.
It was a tale of two halves really for Ferrari. Charles Leclerc started on pole, couldn't hold on ahead of Max Verstappen, who was a bit quick in the Red Bull. But the other end of the grid, Carlos Sainz did a really good job, had an engine penalty, started 18th, and charged his way all the way through to 4th, and was so nearly on the podium as well, which would have been remarkable.
Yeah, it was a tough one for Ferrari, Bernie, because of course they had Charles right at the front and Carlos right at the back. So as a strategist, I imagine it's quite a tricky one to go into.
Yeah, so you're starting at the back with Carlos in P18, as Jolyon said. As a strategist, you're trying to think, how do you get the best out of this situation? So what they'll be thinking is, how do they buy that car some free air to use its pace? They don't want to get stuck in a DRS train of the cars at the back of the field and not making progress. So your whole aim is, how do you get that car into more of a track position where it can use the pace that's in the car in order to progress forward? And that's definitely what they try to achieve.
There is lots to talk about, so let's get stuck into the strategy. Right, let's go right back to the start of the race. And Carlos Sainz started on the medium tyre compound, Bernie. Do you think that was the right choice?
Yeah, as a strategist, you're looking at what options you can give yourself during the race. You don't know directly from P18 how it's going to unfold, so you just want to have options open to you. The medium allowed, in this case, him to do a medium hard one stop where he could have stopped very early and got out of that traffic if he needed to, buy himself some clear air, or the medium soft strategy, so run a much longer earlier stint and then stop for the soft tyre at the end. That final soft tyre benefited from improved track condition and the lighter fuel, so it performed pretty well for anyone that did that. As well as that, I think the race shifted a bit throughout the race, so I think initially people were thinking the medium hard strategy would be fastest, but as it happened, the hard got a little bit slower than expected during the race and the soft got a little bit better. So that really came into its own for Carlos. So that medium soft strategy really played out to be the right thing for those guys to do.
Jolyon, as a driver, would you have wanted to start on a medium tyre if you were starting further back down the grid, or were you one of those guys that wanted to do something different?
I think everyone wants to do something different when you're starting towards the back. Yeah, but overtaking is never easy. He's in a Ferrari, so he's out of position. He obviously was very fast through the weekend. His teammate was on pole. But still, there's 17 cars ahead. There were 14 other cars on the medium tyre to start. So you see the tyre blankets come off and you're thinking, I need to do a lot of overtaking. There's no magic in the strategy at this point, because you can easily just get in a DRS train and get stuck down in 18th. So actually, Carlos brought his own strategy to life by getting his elbows up, making some overtakes. And crucially, Sergio Perez in the Red Bull was just ahead, also on the medium. So that could have been a bit of a battle coming through.
Yeah, there was a bit of a tussle between those two drivers, and we saw an early battle in the race, and then they were sort of vying for position in terms of strategy as well. Were you surprised that Ferrari didn't bring Carlos Sainz in to cover off Sergio Perez?
It's interesting at that point because that would have been the safest thing to do possibly for that position. But we've got a little video clip that'll just show why they didn't do that. And I think it's really well played from Carlos's point of view.
And Perez is approaching our tail, is behind Mick right now. Either we protect that position or we go longer and overtake him on track with a second phase delta.
Let's keep going.
Copy. And Joel's still out on soft, 26.7.
So it looks good, huh?
Yep. And Max also still out, 25.7.
Yeah, I want this one. Yeah. It looks really good. Let's keep going.
Yeah, so just from that, let's look at the interest for that. So this is Carlos's race here. This is Perez who stopped, and this is the point where he comes out behind Schumacher. So if we say, what are they discussing on the radio there? And if we look at Carlos's pit window, so if I just add that on here, now this black line is going to be Carlos's pit window. And you can see here at the point where he just loses, so if he stops at this point, he will come out ahead of Perez. But from around this lap 20 onwards, he knows that Perez would likely end up ahead of him. And that's the point that they're making those decisions on. And we've seen there the conversation discussing the performance of the soft tyre. So again, to look at that a little bit, these are the three drivers really in question. So we've got Verstappen on the soft, Russell on the soft, and then Carlos on the medium. And you can see that relative to Carlos's lap times, actually that soft tyre is still doing very well at the point that they're deciding. And that's why Carlos pushes to get that soft tyre on and not consider the hard and keep going.
So what's interesting again is Carlos then that's effectively making this call, but with the information from the engineer. So we've seen quite a few times in this show, the best strategies are coming from good communication, from engineer relaying information to the driver. And you've got to have a sharp driver to process that at the wheel, whilst you're trying to work out your own strategy and still pump in the lap times. You're working it all out. And then effectively, Carlos has made that call. Forget it. We're not going to cover off Checo. We'll go for the soft tyre. And he made it work as well.
Engine problem for Daniel Ricciardo. Now he is parked in between the first and second of the Lesmo corners. Last year's race winner was running in the points, but he is now out of this race, and we are surely going to get a safety car here.
Now, we had a safety car. If Carlos had run to the end on that soft, what do you think would have happened?
Again, we've got a little conversation from those guys just at the end of the race to discuss what they think would have happened.
And P4, strong showing there. Good job.
Yeah, I think best race of the season, guys. That was fun.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
We deserved the podium there. How was the end of the race looking on the front end for me? Like no safety car?
It was close, I think. We were getting close, so he was struggling with fronts. So I think it would have been possible at the very end.
So again, now if we just go to have predicted what if we hadn't had the safety car. So again, looking at the same sort of race trace, you've got Carlos here. He's elected to stay out and put this soft tyre on. As we know, he then comes out behind Perez in the dark blue here. So he has this overtake to do on track. And he's closing down Russell. I think Ferrari are reasonably optimistic that he would have got all the way there because the lap times weren't, fantastically strong. But that was at least the aim. The aim was to see how far that soft tyre could go. At the end, could they close this gap to Russell? And, that's a podium position for those guys. So that strategy really allowed that opportunity to exist for them.
What I quite like about it is that on the medium tyre, he started with so many other drivers on the medium. But by having that fluidity in the car to change to the soft when most of the other teams' drivers went from medium to hard, that's what opened up the chance for Carlos to actually think about a podium. Because normally from 18th, if he goes for the Perez strategy or the strategy of the bulk of the field, he actually did most of the work on the track. He passed so many of those cars just on the track. He was fourth quite early on. But by then shifting to the soft tyre with great communication with the pit wall, that's what brings that podium chance into life. And they shifted from what I imagine they were expected to do at the start.
So that's what could have happened, but of course we did have a safety car. So what actually happened after that?
Yeah, so we did have the safety car come out just after this point in the race. And this is sort of the reaction of, the top six drivers. This is the point the safety car comes out. This is their race stints up until that point. So we can see that Carlos has done 30 laps on his medium tyre and now he's on lap 17 on his soft. Around 6 laps left to go in the race. 4 of the top 6 drivers elected to stop at that point and put on another set of soft tyres. Now the interesting thing for that, when we start to look at where they were in the race and what was going on at that point. So, here we have Russell here in this green line and we have Carlos. At this point, at the point the safety car is deployed, when Russell stops to fit the soft tyre, given that Russell's been on his hard tyres for a very long stint at this stage, Carlos had the opportunity to be ahead of Russell then, if he'd have stayed out and just continued on the soft tyre. So it all hinges on how many laps post-safety car people believe they would be racing at the end of the race. So if we just quickly go to what Leclerc was told by Ferrari at the end of the race, it sort of gives a bit of insight to their thinking at that point.
And safety car deployed, stay positive.
Yeah, let me know what we do.
I will do.
Otherwise I know what to do. Verstappen has a safety car gap to stop.
We do not gain position if we stay out, so stop this lap. Box this lap.
Copy, are we losing positions?
No, we are not losing position, and we'll stop for used soft. Used soft. We believe we'll have 3 or 4 laps after the safety car, racing laps.
So there's a few interesting things in that. First of all, it's interesting based on some of the previous conversations that we had that Leclerc's really clear on, does he gain or lose positions under the safety car? So there's a lot of questions going on there. But he's also initially told, 4 racing laps. But at this point we've got, Verstappen only has 6 laps left in the race. It's important, Verstappen's the leader. He's the person that's going to pick up the safety car. So it's how many laps he has left. That's important. And there's a few things we can look at to sort of help with that. So if we look at, this is for Monza, what traditionally a safety car history has been. So this is just lap number and the previous years that we've had at Monza. Now you can see in 2021 that we had 5 safety car laps in the middle of the race. 2020, 4, and then the red flag, and 2018, 3. But all of these safety cars had no lapped cars to let by. So at no point had the safety car, those extra laps, and it does take time to let the additional cars by. So teams should have been thinking, at Monza, the average length of a safety car is 4 to 5 laps without lapped cars. There's only 6 left in this race. So it should have been at least in their point of view. The other thing is that a lot of teams, post Abu Dhabi last year, we had that change of regulation. So this is just what the regulation says. And the important thing is it says that all cars that have been lapped by the leader will be required to pass. So that changed post, the Abu Dhabi that we had at the end of last year. So it's really important now that teams are sort of considering, we open a safety car window such that a driver can come in, box under safety car and get back out. We often close a safety car window very close to the end of the race when we know or we think the race won't restart. Now this is right on the cusp of that with sort of 6 laps to go. It's really close.
It seems to be the main problem for Ferrari. If they had have not pitted Carlos at this point, he finishes on the podium because the race doesn't restart. But not only, if it had restarted for 1 lap, they might have risked it on a soft tyre for Carlos against a better soft tyre for George Russell with 1 lap at the end. But they thought it was 3 or 4 laps that there might be, in which case they thought, actually, we need fresher tyres to try and fight with George and take the podium that way. But they've miscalculated that the race was going to finish under safety car.
And of course, Monza is quite tricky to overtake on, so they could have been okay.
Yeah, exactly. And, the difficulty that we have is, the other regulation we're working to is 2 laps after the safety car, there's no DRS. So even if you only have 1 or 2 racing laps, there's no DRS in those laps. So was it worth keeping that position on the chance? Now, a lot of people boxed, or a lot of people didn't box for various other reasons. So it wasn't clear cut to everyone, but it's now got to be definitely a consideration.
The other thing is the Ferrari straight line speed at Monza was actually really good. We've been so used to Red Bull having great race ability with that top speed, but Ferrari were the team with one of the best top speeds in Monza, certainly quicker than the Mercedes. So with track position at the end, even if there was a lap or 2 of racing, surely Carlos on a soft tyre is going to hold on. So it was a good strategy, but maybe not absolutely optimised with that final call.
Another interesting strategy and an interesting race from a strategic point of view. Bernie, Jolyon, thank you so much. Formula One heads to Singapore now for the Singapore Grand Prix in a couple of weeks' time. From us now, though, it's goodbye.